Hey guys, this is Leeza and I'm so excited today because I have two very special guests on my channel. It's Sharin and Anuya.
Hi!
They are the lovely ladies from Books on Toast, which is an amazing YouTube channel all about books and reading, and they're also really funny and really smart, so you definitely should check out their channel as well. Also, today we're going to be talking about books on my channel since we have them here, and we're going to be sharing our favorite books about love. And we thought we'd pick 10 books. So yeah, so let's start with you guys.
Oh God.
Or maybe we can go one by one.
Okay, I'll start. This was actually really tough, by the way, when you asked us to book just 3 books, because almost every book has some element of love or the other, and it was very hard to choose. But I spent the last 10 days going through my entire book collection and, you know, picking the stuff that really means something to me. So these 3 are very special books, Leeza. So I'll get into the first one. The story of this first book it's actually the reason why I started Books on Toast as well. And this book has stayed with me, the physical copy has come with me from Syracuse in New York State to Bombay, and has been with me on my bookshelf for the last 12 years now. And it was a second-hand copy, so it has its own story, I'm sure, before it came into my possession. So it's a very special book. It's called About a Boy by Nick Hornby, and I'm sure you guys have heard of the
yeah, it's a great
movie.
book. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It's a great book as well.
And it has been adopted.
Yeah.
And it has been adapted into an excellent movie, which I was very shocked by because I thought they'd fuck it up. But they didn't.
Have you seen the movie?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
nice?
Yeah, it's lovely. Okay. So About a Boy is about a boy.
A boy.
And his unlikely friendship with this man-child. It's a 36-year-old man named Will Freeman, who decides that he wants to, that single women, single mothers are easy lays. So he goes to a support group where single parents meet, pretends to have a fake child, and starts dating Marcus, who's the boy, his mother. And that relationship doesn't work out, but Will and Marcus become friends, and the rest of the book is about how they help each other overcome the challenges of their life. Literally how they help each other grow. And it is such a stunning, warm, lovely, sweet book. And you don't expect that because you think it'll be, first of all, Hugh Grant was in the movie, so I was like, this is going to be a cheesy romance. It was not. I was so pleasantly blown away by this book. And even now when I read it, I've reread it multiple times, even now when I read it, it makes me feel like I well up towards the end when everything comes together.
Aww.
And it's just, it's such a, and it's not love in the traditional sense, it's friendship, and it's like an unlikely relationship between a man and a teenage boy.
Yeah.
And you know how we keep trying to label relationships. We want to label everything, we want to put everything in a box. Whereas this is just 2 people who met, who acted as catalysts in each other's lives and like changed each other's lives without like trying too hard or without like labeling or putting it in a box that everybody's comfortable with. So this is my first pick, my favorite book.
I think that's really apt because so often when people think about love, they think boy meets girl, romantic, you know, Mills and Boone, flowers and chocolate and all of that. And I personally like to actually read anything other than that when I'm looking at love, because I feel like that's just too cliched and just tired of a vision and too narrow a vision of love, right? And human relationships and love extends so much beyond that context.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a big Salman Rushdie fan. So Salman Rushdie is possibly one of the reasons I started really reading books way more than I used to earlier. He's just one of those writers who creates these amazing immersive worlds and characters that you just can't stop falling in love with, and that's the kind of feeling that he sort of implants in our beings. What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't make fun of my Salman, okay?
Salman Rushdie,
that's the only appropriate Salman according to me. And so my favorite book by him is this book called The Ground Beneath Her Feet. And what the book is about is essentially a very contemporarized version of the Orpheus and Eurydice Greek myth. And the myth was really that this man and this woman were like desperately in love. The man was a musician and the woman was like a nymph. And she for some reason dies, and Orpheus is so unhappy that he goes to the underworld and requests Hades to sort of allow him to take her back. and he only puts one condition, that till the time you reach the world, do not turn back and look at her, because then you will lose her forever. And he does that. He turns around, sees her, and then she disappears. So what Salman Rushdie did is try to contemporize it. Well, I mean, it's not contemporary. It's set in the 1940s, so But the story is about this guy called Ormus Kama, which is somewhat like a Freddie Mercury character. He's like a Parsi guy who's moved to England, and he has this another friend called Umeed Merchant, and both of them are in love with this one girl called Veena Aspara. So now all these characters have these intensely strange names, and they have these very diverse backgrounds. They're all immigrants from Bombay to England, and they're all trying to find their identity. So the book is not just about their romantic love, and the love triangle in the middle is just for the narrative to keep moving forward. But the story is more about, love for a city, love for a country, love for identity, love for yourself, and then discovering yourself through this kind of relationship. There's a lot of music in the book. In fact, U2 did like a version of Ground Beneath Her Feet as a song. Like they took some like sentences from the book and turned that into a song, which was in a movie, in a soundtrack of a movie.
Cool.
So yeah, so it's just one of those really intense, and it has characters from The Moor's Last Sigh, and also Satanic Verses and Midnight Children. So they all somehow meet in this book. It's more magical realism, so it's a bit like but it's really nice because it makes you feel
Salman.
like Salman is amazing. I love Salman Rushdie.
I can tell.
Just saying.
Anuya seems to have some thoughts.
Doesn't matter, less competition. So you tell.
All right. Well, actually, the book I was going to first talk about, as far as my favorite books about love goes, was maybe one that had an early impression on me, and therefore I thought it was particularly important. It was a book I read as a kid, and it's a children's book ostensibly, but I think it's a great read for adults as well. It's called Charlotte's Web by E.B. White.
Oh my God, I have not
this
heard of this book in years.
Sweetest
Amazing.
book. It's a book about animals, technically. Charlotte is a spider, and she forms an unlikely friendship with a pig called Wilbur. And
It's
so,
very cute.
even though it's a book about animals who talk and all of that, I think it has some really, really beautiful lessons about friendship and also death. I feel like as a little kid, it was my first time when I read that book. The first time I really thought about the fact that death is inevitable, and we're all gonna die, and that's okay, And I feel like what was so beautiful about Charlotte's Web is the way Charlotte ends up saving Wilbur. You've read have you guys both read the book?
It's damn
okay. Well, I feel like it's one of those books which at any age it's going to move you in this amazing way, and in a kind of similar way to the book you talked about. It's just an unconventional friendship that ends up defining both the people involved in this really beautiful way. And I think it shows also this sort of journey from innocence to knowledge, which I think in a way love ends up being very sort of connected to that journey, right? Well. It's a process of discovery. And so that is my first book.
Oh,
I recommend.
It's very cute. It's one of
It
those.
is so.
Have you
Have you
tried
watched the
reading
movie?
it?
Have you watched the movie? Isn't there
Oh,
a
no,
Dakota
I
Fanning movie?
Is there?
Yeah, there is.
I haven't seen the movie.
There's a Charlotte's Web
Somehow,
movie.
if I've read a book, then I don't watch the movie because I
really?
always feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
I'm too curious to watch it. I watch every time.
Some movies are good. It's my pitch. Some movies are not terrible.
But read the books.
Yeah, but read the books
That's what
first.
we're here for, guys.
Yeah. Oh, it's my turn again.
Yes.
Oh, my second book. So, I started with friendship. I'm gonna now dive into romantic love.
Oh, she's doing that.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And I mean, I don't like reading romance, as we discussed. It's not when it's that cliched plot of boy meets girl, and then misunderstanding happens, and then they clear everything, eventually get together and have lots of sex. That's boring. But I've realized that a lot of these contemporary award-winning novels, they're all romances. They're just treated differently and written better. Like I finished reading Normal People, which is just
amazing.
Fucked up grown-ups falling in love, and what it's like to be basically millennials with all their disillusionment falling in love, and
It's
what
a
that is
modern
like.
love story.
Yeah, it's a modern love story, and again, it's winning all the awards. But the one book that always has stayed with me in terms of like true blue, great tragic romance is a book called Like Water for Chocolate, which by this Mexican author named Laura Esquivel. And it's old, I think it was written not that old, 1992, I believe it was published in. And it's the story of this girl named Tita, who's the youngest daughter of this matriarchal family, and she's not allowed to marry. And she falls in love because her mother wants her to take care of her till she dies. And she falls in love with a man named Pedro, and he marries the sister, her sister, so that he could stay close to Tita. And the whole novel is in terms of, so there's a lot of, it's magical realism. Food.
Recipes.
Yeah. So every chapter has a recipe, and a lot of the emotion is expressed through food. And it's crazy how beautiful that book is. And even though that romance is sort of doomed from the start, you're rooting for it so much. A completely different culture. Just one of the best romance novels I have ever read, ever.
I should revisit it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, me too, actually, in a long time.
It's very sensual, and food and sex and everything is like just, it never materializes, but it's in the background. The whole, the sex between these two people, right? So the food becomes like this form of communication.
And like forbidden romance. Everybody
Exactly.
Forbidden, doomed. We are all suckers.
Oh yeah. Forbidden doomed romance is like...
Yeah. We love that shit.
Yeah, that's my opium.
It's our opium. Yeah, it's true. It's like if they get together, like, oh, that's too easy. We don't want that.
It's the happy ending, the pining,
nobody cares. Give us the heartbreak.
Yeah.
We are happy people.
It's a lie.
So, okay, speaking about forbidden romances, nobody does forbidden romances in modern day like Murakami does. I mean, his is like that classic boy meets girl, girl does not like boy, girl is also a little crazy. Most of his women are crazy. It's insane. I don't know why he does it, but I love Murakami. I can't say anything bad about him. But yeah, wow, epiphany. Anywho, so I moved to Bombay about 12 years ago, and that's the time I realized, like, shit, I'm finally free of my parents. I will finally date. And
you just said date. She may. No,
I mean, I meant date only. I'm a dater only.
That's a good phase.
So the first 3 years were completely miserable because I went on one lousy date and I was just really like trying to settle into the city, but for some reason the city wasn't letting me settle in. I don't know if that makes sense. But that's also the same time I started reading a lot of Murakami. So, Norwegian Wood or Sputnik Sweetheart. Both these stories spoke to me a lot because it was a lot about longing, displacement, and also finding comfort in human beings. That's the one thing that Bombay really does for people from small town India like me. You get carried with the mass. So even the small acts of just getting out of your house daily, walking to the station, getting into the train, then getting out, like you were always carried by just a wave of humanity. And that kind of emotion was really replicated very well in Murakami books because they also speak about just human beings being carried by the wave of, normalcy and everyday life, and at some level disconnecting with your true self. So a lot of people think Murakami books is just a lot about romance and sadness, which it is. But a lot of it is also about self-love.
And weird sex. There's a lot of weird sex in Murakami books.
Okay, sex is there for enjoyment.
Yeah,
okay.
But Tokyo is like that only, na? It's like Bombay where it's just like lots of people.
Exactly, that crossing.
But very disciplined.
Very clean also.
Yeah, very clean and very disciplined.
This is just chaos, right? Chaos and chaos and chaos. And that's how people tend to become so lonely in big cities, right? Because you struggle with finding connections and you struggle with like finding time.
I do struggle with finding connection everywhere. Like Vodafone is really bad.
That is true. Telecom industry is really bad these days, right?
Sorry, more.
So Murakami is like, that hug that you need from a friend who just sort of sits quietly, listens to you, and you just really want some comfort. And that's what it provided me. It was just like that cup of tea on a really cold winter's day when the sun is out. That's what Murakami did for me. So for people who travel and settle in new cities, it's just the perfect immigrant novel to take with you. So Norwegian Wood is my favorite. And
what is it about?
Oh,
yeah.
So Norwegian Wood is about this guy who is in his about, I think, 60s or 70s, and he is flying from one city to the other, and it's a long distance journey. So during the duration of that flight, he's trying to recount his time growing up in Japan when the revolution had just started, and this is the time when people were just trying to find work and labor laws were being instructed, and people were told to make themselves and their emotions a part of the state. because there was that whole, culture of, work first, home later. And so in this time, he falls in love with his best friend's girlfriend. His best friend dies and he commits suicide. So he and this girl, the girlfriend of the guy who died, they make this unlikely friendship where they try to comfort each other. And the guy falls in love with the girl, and she has just lost her place in the world. So she's going from, institute to institute, trying to find help for herself, and he's trying to shadow her every now and then to see if he can provide her any comfort, meanwhile seeking comfort himself. So that kind of bond that they build, and I don't want to give away the ending and stuff. People should read it. It's really a journey, and throughout the book, people are traveling. He's just going from one small town to the other small town. So there's a lot of journey. There's a lot of scenery and everything, and those things really expand your loneliness so much. It's insane. Tears will come.
You know why Murakami is the friend who listens, right? Because he can't understand what he's saying. It's Japanese.
Okay, my turn.
Taco.
Yes, everybody please take a moment to appreciate
Yes, of course.
this genius t-shirt that I'm wearing. It says
to
taco very much.
I wanted to say this. Are you wearing this because of water for chocolate?
Maybe, yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. Tita
Subconsciously, yeah. Magical realism, birds came and I put this t-shirt on me. I was
Of
just
course. Leeza, what is your next book? Please tell us.
I actually really like books that also explore the darker sides of love, because love is rarely all rosy and it's actually, I think, an arena where we see some of the darkest human behavior as well, even if we'd like to believe otherwise, And so a book that I've really always considered one of my favorites, not just about love, but about what it means to be human, and it's about a lot of things, but it's a great book. It's called Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee, who's a South African author. I think he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. It's a short book. You can read it in a couple of sittings, but it is such a powerful book, and it looks at, I think, the whole range of human experience and emotions, and the sort of scale from sort of the nobility that human beings are capable of, but also the cruelty and depravity that humans are capable of. And I think it actually stays more in the latter part of that spectrum. But human beings are flawed. I feel like it would be naive to pretend that that love is ever going to be actually all perfect, and I think power and control and oppression can also be violence. Unfortunately, ends up being a part of that experience of loving. It's hard not to let your worst impulses show up at some point, right? In love. So it's about this predatory English professor in South Africa, and he, sort of seduces young and vulnerable women, and is basically leading this very hedonistic life, which he justifies to himself because he's an intellectual, and he thinks somehow he's above the realm of morality. And so he's sort of playing this dangerous game, and then he falls from grace because his misdemeanors or indiscretions are discovered. But it also explores the father-daughter relationship, though, because he has a daughter who is negotiating her own identity as a lesbian. And in the backdrop of all of this are the sort of racial tensions of South Africa. These are white people, but many of the people they're interacting with are of people of color. And then there's the sort of power dynamic inevitably that's going to be part of any equation, particularly a romantic equation. Then it's multi-layered power, right? There's the racial situation and the inevitable power dynamic between people who are in a relationship. So super interesting book, and it also has a kind of unexpected ending where perhaps you almost are able to feel sorry for the character, even though he's not a very likable character all through. Because if we're really honest with ourselves, I think we're all capable of getting to some pretty dark places. And capable of cruelty and violence. And it takes a certain amount of, I think, you have to deliberately curb those impulses.
True. Absolutely.
And I feel like killing cockroaches all the time.
Too much real happened.
That book just, I was weeping at the end when I read that book, but not out of they're very different, I think, crying experience than after reading Norwegian Wood. You know what I mean? A very almost like, oh my, like the human condition is so fucked. But
the
but
human
it is,
condition
you
is
know?
so fucked. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
I have my last book now. Yay, last book. And this one I chose because I feel this is the book that introduced me to gay love really well. Yeah. There was and because it captured its time also so beautifully, and it introduced me to, you know how AIDS used to be called GRID, which is gay related immunodeficiency, because that was in the 80s. It first got diagnosed in the homosexual community
In America.
In America. So that's what they called it, thinking that heterosexual people can't get it. And I mean, that just goes to show the biases in 1980s, so not that far away. We were all born in the 1980s, right?
No.
No, okay. She's a baby.
She's a babe.
Yeah. But we were born in the 1980s.
Of course. Proud of it.
Yeah, and so not so long ago, the kind of homophobia that existed.
And continues to exist,
And continues
honestly.
continues to exist, but at least we are more aware, right? We all grew up also slightly not educated about homosexuality. So we had to go looking to books, to fiction, to help us, understand and get rid of the biases that we were born with.
Yeah.
So for me, this book, even though I had read other LGBT relationships in other stories, this one really stayed with me because it was sort of like a two-pronged one. Now, itna preamble dekhi maine ab tak kitab ka naam hi bataya. It's a book called Tell the Wolves I'm Home by Carol Rivka Brunt, and it's new, and I feel like it would make a great introduction to other people as well, because it talks about the relationship between a gay man in the 1980s dying of AIDS, and his favorite niece who's in love with him. He is her first love. And after he dies, she reconnects with his lover who's also dying. So the relationship between a man and his niece, the relationship between those two men, both are very beautifully explored in this book. And again, it's very VP in the end. By the time
I want to cry already.
Like, it's so lovely. So I mean, firstly, it really sensitized me to gay relationships, to AIDS, and like how brutal it is, and the attitude towards that disease back then and also now, and imagine a child sort of in love with her uncle, trying to, there's a scene where her sister, they don't have a good relationship. So to be cruel, she pulls out mistletoe and threatens to hold it over the girl and her uncle's head. And she's like, then he'll have to kiss you. And now this girl is torn because she's afraid that if he kisses her, she'll catch the disease.
Wow.
And also, but
that's
she doesn't want to hurt her uncle's feelings. So she's like, she doesn't know what she would have done. And I feel like just this little one scene just exposes so much of the dynamic between those people, and also, of course, the time and the circumstances. And then she strikes a friendship with Toby, who's her uncle's lover, and how the uncle writes them both letters saying he writes Toby a letter saying take care of June, the girl, and writes the girl a letter saying take care of Toby, he doesn't have anyone. And then how they also form a bond. So it's love in its purest form, if you ask me. It's unconditional. It's not, you're not expecting anything back. And then, of course, how loss eclipses everything eventually. Since we began only saying we're all going to die and it's cool. That's explored really beautifully in this book. But yeah, lots of different kinds of love done really, really well. And please carry lots of tissues. Box leke aao.
Yeah, send some to us also.
Yeah. What will happen to you when you read this book? She's already, one tear has gathered here, just listening to the plot.
Your turn.
No, take a moment, because this book is really intense, man.
It is. And it's also well written and a very easy read overall. I mean, not easy emotionally, but
an accessible.
Very accessible book, yeah.
Accessible read.
Okay. After Anuya's very depressing book recommendation, mine is slightly cheery, but not really.
Oh, good, because mine is...
Yours is very, very
not.
tough. Okay, cool. So this is, I really struggled with picking the third one because there's so many books. I really want
But
to
you
talk
guys
about.
can pick one more because we'll do 10 total
Yeah.
and 3 will be 9.
The one is common, right?
Yeah, we have one common.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would have loved to talk about poetry, but anyway, forget that. I mean, we've all done a lot of poetry and stuff like that. But there's this author, Scottish author called Ali Smith. She is writing these really interesting contemporary love stories between unlikely people. And it's all written, so she's from Scotland, but her stories are based in the current political climate or what's happening with Brexit and things like that, with Scotland, Ireland and England put together. So she's writing a quartet of books, and they're all about seasons, and they're all about, you know, relationships that are formed in seasons and they break up. Once the season is over, the relationships are over. So you know that they're not lasting and durable, but none of them are romantic. So that is what is interesting about the way she's, you know, explaining different types of love. So the first one is autumn, the second one is winter, and there are two more coming now, spring and summer. And spring is going to come in fact in March end, so that's like one of the most awaited books of the year. I'll talk about autumn because that was the first book that set the precedent, and it was also longlisted for the Booker Prize last year. And it's about a 101-year-old man in like an old age home who strikes up this really unlikely friendship with a 32-year-old girl who used to come and visit some of these old people just because she wanted to expand her mind and things like that. So, I mean, she would volunteer, and both of them struck up this really interesting friendship, and he helped her discover her artistic side because he was an art critic. So that's the thing that connected them the most. And the dialogues in this book will make you really crumble on the inside, because I mean, what things can, you know, I mean, this is a huge generation shift, right? This 100-year-old man has seen wars, he's seen the political climate change, he's seen his country change, and she's 32 and she's, you know, I mean, her entire world is overtaken by social media, and that's what she keeps on talking about in the book as well. So the fact that these guys can connect even though there is such a huge age gap, and this is a very pure and very interesting kind of love that is not durable. You get into this book knowing that it's not going to last, but there is just so much, you know, connection that they form during this book, and a lot of it is transferred into the people around. So there are all these like other characters that have been written in, and that, you know, sort of tend to imbibe everything that is happening to these central figures. And meanwhile, there is all the other things that are happening in the ecosystem and in the world, and how that's impacting them in their friendship and how their politics get involved. A lot of people, you know, especially for young people who are like dating and it's only, you know, their first or second relationship, you know, your idea of romance is very about like, oh my god, like I can't wait to meet him and maybe we'll go out here and do this. And your first fight is like, oh my god, why did I all of that, right? Nobody thinks
very
about
articulate.
Yeah, you know what I mean, guys. Nobody talks about, you know, what it will be like once you guys, you know, get serious. Like, it's not always going to be this like high passionate love making and things like that. It's all about settling in and really like figuring out who you are, and that self-love starts developing, and the deeper you fall in love with each other, the deeper you fall in love with yourself. So
hopefully
those things, yeah.
Depends who you're with.
Well, yeah, that's the hope, right? Yeah. So she builds that entire story within her novels, and I think these are great contemporary, you know, love reads.
Does she have one novel come out every season?
Yeah, it's
wow.
so like winter came out in winter, autumn came out in autumn.
Shit.
Spring, it is spring right now, so March is when spring is coming, and summer will come in summer.
Has
and
she
then
met George R. R. Martin? Please someone introduce them to each other.
Yes, high functioning person is writing at a fucking hell.
She's like, when she says winter is coming, it bloody comes.
Yeah.
It comes.
Wish I could come on demand.
Winds of winter.
Like these books. Working on it.
Well done. Should talk later.
I mean, you really need
Okay. So my
On
third
demand.
book actually has quite the opposite portrayal of love than what you described between a couple. It's called The Vegetarian. I know Anuya doesn't like it, but it's by a Korean author called Han Kang, and it is one of the most bizarre books I've ever read.
Definitely
which is partly
that.
why I am recommending it, because I feel like it'll really take you into a space you weren't expecting, and by most standards it's very strange. So it's just one of the weirdest books I've ever read, and I feel like even though some of the images and situations in it border on the surreal, the emotions that they conjure are super, super potent. And it was also, I think, it made me think, you know how you said that couples hopefully over time develop this sort of synergistic thing where their self-love and their mutual love grow together. But it made me think also of how love can be so oppressive sometimes, because if you transgress from the expectations of your spouse or your family, it becomes so hard for them to love you. You know, and this woman in the book, she chooses to be vegetarian, which is
in Korea, which is really something.
Which is a transgressive act in Korea, clearly. It's a radical act. And they find it so difficult to accept. And even though the book is really not about vegetarianism as such at all, it's about much, much bigger things. I feel like the family and the husband end up trying so hard to stifle this person that they supposedly love, because she's not acceptable or lovable to them if she doesn't follow their rules, you know? And I feel like that is something even in India we experience on so many levels. People don't love you unconditionally. You've got to be this ideal version of, and especially women, you know? I feel like it was a weird like cry for help in a way of one woman against Korean society and the patriarchal and super oppressive norms that she was subject to. And then there's the really interesting like combination of sex and art and botany, for lack of a better word. And I thought that was quite, it was so unusual and evocative that I feel like just for its unusualness, and also it might open your mind to the cultural context of a place that you haven't bothered thinking about. And I always like a book that teaches me something.
Yes, that's true.
I felt like I didn't get any closure in that book. That was my biggest problem with it. Where you brought me into the world, I invested myself, and then it didn't take me to that feeling of, that finish line. That was my issue with.
But do you think that's an expectation that every book has to?
No, it isn't. It isn't, and that's why this book won the translated Booker, I believe, right? Vegetarian.
It created quite a stir when it came out.
It did. So no, I feel like artists should write for themselves, but then as readers, once you've written a book, it belongs to the readers. That's what I believe. True. And so this reader was not happy with the vegetarian.
I think it's still worth a read, even if you don't like it, though.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely interesting, and I think there's a resonance there, especially in India as well, right? Because I know a friend who was vegetarian, and she got married into this like very ravenous like non-vegetarian family. So there was a culture clash there, and I remember she would call me and cry and like, I don't know how to adjust. And at that time I was so stupid. I used to be like, why? But like, why can't you fight? Like, of course, like how can they tell you what to eat, what not to eat, and all of that? But like, I get it. Like, these are like critical things for a lot of people to go through, and it's sad, man. In India also is like a big thing. Shahid Kapoor ko le lo.
On that note, I think it's time for you both to recommend your 10th book.
Our 10th book, yay!
It's the one book we both agree on, because her and my reading habits are completely different.
Yeah, which is what makes this fun though. We bring different things to the table.
Yeah.
Literally.
But sometimes we don't agree at all on any book.
But this book, it's a classic.
It's a great movie also.
Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell.
Oh, we're ending on a very romantic note.
Yeah, but not. Actually, we're ending on not a romantic note, exactly like the book. So, I don't mean to spoil it for anyone.
Come on, guys.
But it's now part of culture.
It's pop culture. Scarlet.
So the
Tara
most famous love story, is
iconic.
Gone with. It's a very iconic love story between Scarlett O'Hara has been my personal heroines, and I read this book when I was in college. I was 16, so I was very impressionable, and I thought she was so amazing, so badass, such a go-getter. She didn't let anything, even friendship, or even like basic human decency, stop her from getting what she wanted, or rather what she had to get.
But also she was so loyal. She was so loyal to the people she loved. It's amazing.
It was about saving Tara, her plantation, from ruin. And so she did whatever she could. And that book also introduced me to the American Civil War. I didn't know that it had happened until I read Gone with the Wind. So I hold that book very dear to me. And it features the most iconic love story, which is Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler, and she gets married thrice, and Rhett is her third husband. So it's not like the easy they meet, they fall in love. There's a lot of will they, won't they. What happens eventually in the end. And then the book ends on the greatest fuck you ever. Where she says, "Arey, but it's known. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn."
Yeah,
it's one of the most famous lines.
Like
Right up there with, my name is Anthony Gonzalez. Because
yes, I agree too. Yes, completely.
I can walk English, I can talk English. It's there. It's up there with those lines.
And I think the movie adaptation was pure gold.
Superb. It's good now also. Oh my God, it's so
Vivian
good.
Lee was
she is
iconic.
Perfect. Cast so well. The whole
Gable,
everything.
Everything was so perfect. Like the movie is on Netflix for those of you who want to watch it now. And I read the. I saw
Have you read it?
Before.
I have neither read it nor watched the movie.
Oh my God, just do it.
I'm going
Leeza.
to. I know.
Okay, so I saw the movie first. So my dad used to rent VHS tapes from like this local library, and we used to watch like movies every weekends. Okay, so Gone with the Wind, Ben-Hur, and all of that was at the same time. So I remember watching it and just like I mustn't be older than 8 or 9. But like for me, even at that time, I was just so taken in by the story, the visual language, everything was so cool about it. And I recently rewatched it. Yeah, I recently rewatched it on Netflix. It has like a really long interval. It's so funny. It's in the print. It's so funny. But amazing, iconic movie to watch, iconic book to read. It also has a very bad sequel.
Oh God, do not touch that
novel.
with do not read the sequel. Yeah, it's written by someone else. It was sanctioned by Margaret Mitchell's estate, but it is it's horrifying. Just like if you find a copy, just burn it.
It'll really like make you feel happy. Like it's a happy book.
I mean, it's empowering. It's great for women because
it's great
like it's even though it's a romance, it's a woman. It's a
feminist story.
Yeah, it's an extremely feminist story, and it's a woman who knows her mind, and also it's a man who is equal to her in every way, who also knows his mind, and I mean, she's not a likable character, like she's not nice and she's not sweet, and she will trample all over you if it means she gets what she wants, which is why she's so different from everything else, all the romances that you read. And Margaret Mitchell wrote one book in her whole life. That's it. She wrote this one book.
Wonder.
Yeah. And I mean, we could go on forever just talking about why.
I mean, it has like epic stuff.
One of the greatest romances ever.
I want to reread this book. Like I really want to get into it. Maybe we should read it together.
Yeah, I hope you guys read all of these books as well, because I think each have something quite valuable and important to share about love and human relationships. And bring the tissues. Yeah, bring the tissues. Yeah. Make sure you have a huge box of tissues. And if you liked this episode, then you should come and watch Leeza's episode on our channel. Yes, you should do that. Yeah, it's a really fun episode. We speak about female sexuality and books that taught us about female sexuality. Yes. And we cover a lot of really different, really fun books there as well. And I've made quite a few bad jokes in this one. I've held myself back here because I don't want Leeza's fans to suffer. No. My fans, they are used to me saying really shitty PJs, but I did this for her. You guys should check out their channel. Books on Toast is an amazing channel, and I think you'll discover lots of great books through their channel. So go like, subscribe and comment and watch all the videos on their channel. And of course, if you haven't already, you must subscribe to my channel, right? Yes, please. And thank you so much, Leeza, for having us. It's been an absolute lovely experience talking to you about books. It's so cool. I think we can talk endlessly about books wherever you take us. Yes. Thanks, you guys. But yeah, please do subscribe to Leeza's channel. It's really cool. It's really empowering. If you're a modern person living in modern day, you are a modern person living in modern day. Yeah, I mean, everybody else is dead, Sharin. Just watch it. On that note, or an alien. Aliens can also subscribe. It's great technology. Learn about Indian sex, yes. To both these channels, Books on Toast and my channel. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you next time.